Well, welcome to the annual meeting of the St. Mary's Board of Visitors. On behalf of the students, faculty, and staff, I thank you for your willingness to participate in this day of reflection and dialogue about girls, their education, and their future. We are very fortunate to have Tiffany Dufu with us today because she is, simply put, inspirational. Tiffany has devoted her career to inspiring, encouraging, and teaching young women to believe in the potential within them. She has dedicated her life's work to the belief that when women are at the table, they will build bridges, coalitions, partnerships, and alliances that will lead to solutions to some of society's toughest challenges. In other words, Tiffany believes, as our founder, Aldert Smedes, believed when he founded our school in 1842, that educated women make a difference. Tiffany is often called a catalyst at large in the world of women's leadership. We welcome you here today, Tiffany. We do, to be a catalyst for us to help facilitate our thinking and new ways about young women. We're so grateful that you're here. Please join me in welcoming Tiffany Dufu.
Good afternoon. So if you see me eyeing Jeannie right there, it's because I'm a preacher's daughter, and I could be up here forever. So I'm going to pay attention to you, and you're going to let me know when I should wrap up. My life's work is advancing women and girls. That's pretty much why I'm on the planet. My life is very simple. I already know what's on my tombstone, and I'm just kind of project managing my life backwards. And I feel really lucky that I get to execute my purpose with all of you here today. Full disclosure, I already got what I came for because I spent time with your girls, and they're remarkable, they're articulate, they're confident, they're poised, and they give me so much confidence that the world is in very good hands, not in the future, but right now. Right now, I'm proud of them, and right now, I'm so proud of everything that they've accomplished. I think that today, we're going to spend a little bit of time. I'm going to share some of my story. I really want to get into the work that I've been exploring around the assets, the behaviors, the mindsets that young women need in order for them to be successful advancing their leadership. And then I'll spend just a little bit of time focused on the question that I get most often, which is, well, what can we do in order to ensure that they get that, although St. Mary's is already a big part of this. One of the things that I find frustrating about our news media cycle is that usually there's just one or two events that are dominating the headlines, and we often don't get to find out what's going on in the rest of the world. So for those of you who may not know, something really remarkable happened yesterday. 21 girls of the 300 that were abducted in Nigeria in 2014 from that school were released through a negotiation between the terrorist organization and the government. And one of the voices that's been ringing in my ears ever since I found out about this yesterday was the voice of one of the mothers who was interviewed by a journalist. And at the time, the families didn't know which of the 21 girls had been released. But they were interviewing the families, and there was a mother who was expressing her sheer joy at the release of these girls. And the journalist asked her about how she could be so overjoyed given the fact that she didn't know whether or not one of the girls was her daughter. And the mother responded with confusion. She said, "Of course I would be overjoyed." She said, "All of the girls are all of our daughters." And I really want us to invoke that spirit of community and responsibility to all of the girls and all of our daughters as we move forward and talk about what we can do to support them in being the most powerful change agents in their own journeys, but also the world. This is my mom, Brenda. who was a big, important part of my life. She found out she was pregnant with me when she was 19 years old. My parents are from Watts, LA. Is anyone familiar with Watts? A few. Okay, there were no hands when I asked this question of the girls. So I had to explain that in the mid-1970s, Watts was a rough place. It was a rough time. My mother didn't know anything other than what she had seen in her environment, but she knew she wanted something different. So she went to her uncle, who was an Army recruiter, and she basically said, this guy that's got me pregnant, we're getting married, and he's joining the Army, we're getting out of Watts. And my mother is very convincing, as is probably her uncle. My dad, who's one of 11 kids born in a housing project in Watts, left. And I was born 9 months later at Fort Lewis Army Base in Tacoma, Washington, and I'm from the Pacific Northwest because of that. My parents were able to break a very vicious cycle of poverty, of addiction, of violence in one generation, based off of a fundamental truth, which is that if you want something you've never had before, you're going to have to do something you've never done before in order to get it. And I spent a little bit of time talking with the girls about what that means to take a risk and what it means to do something that you've never done before. So suffice it to say, I'm incredibly patriotic. My dad went to college on the GI Bill. He eventually earned a PhD in theology. I knew nothing growing up of those vicious cycles that my parents had escaped. Literally, I grew up in a lovely house with a white picket fence, and I'm here today to tell you that in order for us to ensure that our girls are successful, we'll need to ensure that we give them plenty of practice taking risks. My journey has been one that has been staunchly committed to basically one thing, which is making sure that women and girls are empowered. I told you I was from the Pacific Northwest. I helped to start a very special place called Seattle Girls School. It's a girls' middle school that focuses on math, science, and technology. This is part of the reason why I care so deeply about girls' education, and we're going to talk more about that. I then went on to Simmons College in Boston, and then the White House Project, where we trained women to run for office and are excited right now for many different reasons. Then I went to LAVO, and I'm going to talk a little bit about LAVO because it's an experiment and what I'm talking about. I also joined the launch team for Lean In and helped get that off the ground. But right now, I have what I would call a portfolio career, which I believe is the future of work. You know, before I went to work for this technology company that was founded by millennials and is run by millennials, which was such a culture shock to me. It took me 3 weeks to get up the courage to ask, is there a phone here? To which the receptionist replied, do you mean a landline? And I said, yes. And she said, no, we don't have those here. So I live in a very different universe than most people who are not millennials, because I work in this company that's founded and that's run by them, and it's totally changed the way that I think about what a career even is. Before I started at LAVO, I thought that a career was you investing your time, energy, gifts, talents into one brand, sweat, blood, tears, pretty much 24/7. You negotiated a salary, you negotiated a title. And once you achieved a certain set of deliverables, you asked for a bigger title and more money, and you just kept doing that. Maybe at some point you would move to a different brand, but you pretty much executed that model until you did this thing called retire. No one at LAVO understands that, what I just explained to you, although I'm sure all of you understand what that is. At LAVO, you invest your time, energy, talent, skills in whatever way is going to help LAVO achieve its goals, in whatever way is going to elevate your own platform, because the bigger the platform of the people that work at LAVO, the bigger LAVO is elevated. You're going to invest your talents and your skills in whatever way is going to ensure your own economic viability. So unlike most companies, you're encouraged to have side hustles, what other companies would call a side hustle. And you're also encouraged to invest your talent in whatever way is going to help you create change in the world in a way that you feel like you're giving impact. So what that means is that everyone at LAVO, including me, has what I would call a portfolio career. So right now, I spend part of my time as Chief Leadership Officer at LAVO. I also do a lot of public speaking, largely with Fortune 500 companies who are trying to figure out how do we retain all of the women that we recruit who are ambitious when they start, but then somewhere along the middle, we lose. I also spend time first writing, then editing, now marketing a book. It's called Drop the Ball. It'll come out in February. And I also volunteer my time. I'm on the board of Girl Scouts USA, another really great organization called Girls Who Code. And all of these things are in the interest of advancing women and girls. LAVO is a really important experiment in tapping into the hearts and the minds of millennial women in a way that really speaks to them. And it's essentially a virtual mentor, but it's better for me to just show you what LAVO is instead of trying to explain it. So if you could play this video, that would be great.
Meet Kelly. Like many other young professionals, Kelly has high aspirations,
I want to make upper management someday.
but she still doesn't know how to get there.
I'm kind of stressing out.
Don't stress, Kelly, because Alana
Who? I work like 2 desks away from you.
is about to hook you up with the LAVO League.
Here, scoot over. If you want to move up in the world, you have to connect with other Gen Yers like me and find mentors to help you figure things out.
Kelly can tune in to office hours when influential businesswomen like Sheryl Sandberg present. And she can sign up for local LAVO events. Kelly can network while she sweats it out. How's that burn feel, Kelly?
Love it.
LAVO love it. Dying for pointed advice about getting that raise, Kelly can field questions to mentors like Jennifer directly.
If you're going to ask for a raise, make sure you go in prepared with a number. An increase of 5 to 10% is typical.
When she's ready to ask for that promotion, Kelly has the advice and support to make it happen. Kelly's future is looking brighter. Nice work, Kelly.
So the reason why LAVO means so much to me is that I've spent the vast majority of my career before LAVO really figuring out how do we ensure that young women have what they need in order to be successful? How do we instill in them the mindsets, the abilities, the skills, largely in in-person convenings in rooms with them. And what LAVO has done is taken technology and allowed us to scale that work exponentially. If you have a young woman in your life, please tell her to check out LAVO. It's a wonderful community. And it helps me to get at the heart of why I'm here, which is that we need more women in leadership. There are some really great statistics and there's great news about where we're going with women in leadership. Can you advance the slide for me? Awesome. Which is that we really do have now more women graduating globally, in higher numbers from college than we ever have before. We also have pretty much 50% of our workforce filled with women, but that doesn't really tell the whole story. There are still 22% of all national parliamentarians filled with women, and this is actually a lower number in the U.S. The number in the U.S. is 17%, but I wanted it to be higher, so I included all of the parliaments in the world. And we also have just a small number of global companies that are run by women. A lot of times we focus on the barriers to women's advancement and women's success, and there are several of them. In my book, I talk a lot about the cultural barriers. There's discrimination, there's lack of economic power. But today I just want to spend some time focused on some of the internal challenges and barriers that I believe are completely addressable with environments like St. Mary's that I think are really important in order for us to support young women. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what I call the success equation for advancing your leadership. The first thing that we notice that research tells us that's really important that we notice in young women who are superstars in advancing their leadership is that they do exhibit a certain number of leadership assets. And I'm going to talk about 3 of them that I think are really important today. The first one is what we call self-viability. It's just simply the idea that you're a presumed winner. When we talk about a candidate that's viable, we talk about someone who we believe has the capacity, the potential to win, but almost as if it's presumptive. This is my son, Kofi. Not that long ago, Kofi walked up to me. He looked at me dead in my face, and he said to me, "Mom, I can run faster than you." And I looked at Kofi and I said, no, you can't. I said, my legs are longer than yours. I've been running longer than you have. I said, if we went outside right now and raced, I would definitely beat you. And do you know what Kofi looked at me and said? What did he say? Let's go outside right now, Mom. Come on, let's go. Okay? Now, I want you to fast forward 20 years from now. Kofi will be 30. He's at his company. He sees a job posting. There are 10 qualifications that it says that you need in order to apply for that job. Right? At Kofi's current rate of his perception of his abilities relative to the reality of his abilities, right? How many of those qualifications do you think Kofi will feel like he needs to have in order to apply for the job? Right? 1, 2, 3, and my Kofi will call me. He's like, Mom, I saw this job. The job is mine. It's mine. I also have a 7-year-old daughter. And from everything that I know about women and leadership, even with having a mom like me, I'm pretty certain that 20 years from now, when my daughter's at her company and she sees that same job posting and there are 10 qualifications it says that she needs to have in order to apply for the job, I can almost guarantee you she's going to have 8 of them. All of the young women that I met with earlier today are going to have 8 or more. And you know what she's going to do? She's going to call me. She's going to say, Mom, I saw this really great job opportunity. I mean, I think it could be my dream job, but there's 2 things that I don't have. I mean, what do you think? Should I get a mentor? Should I get a sponsor? Should I go to business school? She's going to be talking to me, strategizing over how she can compensate for the 2 things that she doesn't have. Well, what we know about young women who are really successful advancing their leadership is that they're just as qualified as my daughter, but they have the confidence and they have the sense of self-viability that Kofi has. And so we really want to try to cultivate that in our girls. The other leadership asset that young women who are really successful advancing their leadership exhibit is what I call political savvy. Is anyone familiar with this sticker, with this image? No, nobody. A few. Mr. Yuck, thank you. So maybe people, I think it's like a Pacific Northwest Seattle thing or something. Okay. You had it here. Okay. So for those of you who are not familiar, when I was growing up, some public health official decided that they would launch this campaign to help protect children from poisonous products inside of their homes. Basically, they doled out at schools, at doctors' offices, these Mr. Yuck stickers. And parents were encouraged to put these Mr. Yuck stickers on household products, on medications, and then to teach your children not to touch anything with a Mr. Yuck sticker on it. Whoever made this up, now that I have kids, it's just ridiculous. Like, putting a bright green sticker is not going to deter a child, but either way, this was the whole idea that you were to stay away because it was yucky. And what we find over and over again is that we have a propensity, women do in particular, to think of politics as being yucky. Right? We think we just want to go to work, we just want to achieve great results, we just want to focus on our job. We really don't want to get involved with all the political stuff. But what we find is that the young women who are really successful in advancing their leadership completely understand that politics is just a natural part of any environment. They're very good at understanding that every room they're in is an ecosystem. Even this room, they would understand that where they sat in the room, what they're wearing in the room, whether or not they stand up and ask a question in the room, how confident they are in saying that is all a part of their success. One of the women that I interviewed as we were doing this research said to me, I don't know why so many of my friends say that they don't like politics. I don't think they understand that if they're a member of a family, they've been playing politics their whole life, right? So that's an important part of it. Another leadership asset that I want to talk about really quickly is just effective storytelling. So over and over and over again, we hear and we listen to the young women who are really savvy at advancing their leadership, and they're really gifted storytellers. They're particularly good at weaving their personal narrative into an ask, and they're the young woman that you remember, that you're inspired by, and this is really important, especially when we get to other parts of the success equation, because they're able to engender other people to want to support them, which is a really important part of success. So the first part of the success equation really involves these assets, but I want to talk about a couple of other parts of the equation. The second has to do with ambition. My favorite definition of ambition is in a book by a woman named Anna Fells. She wrote a book called Necessary Dreams that you all should read. And in the book, she defines ambition as a desire to achieve mastery of a craft, combined with a desire to receive public recognition for it. Okay? So the first part of the ambition equation, girls have no problem with, right? We want to excel, we want to do well, we want to work hard, we want to perform. It's the second part, it's the public recognition that causes a bit of ambivalence. Not because we don't want to receive credit, everyone likes getting credit. It's because we've been socially conditioned to not want to pursue it, or for it to feel as if you're not being humble. You should have a sense of humility, so that you would seek public recognition is something that we're often ambivalent about. And what we find in the young women who are really successful at advancing their leadership is that they have somewhat of a comfort level with other people knowing that they want something, that they want credit, that they want recognition, and that they're very clear about what their next step is in getting it. Doesn't mean that they have to know they're going to be a CEO or that they're going to be a senator. Just means that they have a sense of, I really should be on that committee. Or, I really think I need a mentor who can help me with X. They have clarity about what the next step is, and when you combine that with their storytelling and their political savvy and their sense of viability, it's no wonder that they're able to then really do the third part of this equation, which is to make sure that they have access to the people who can help to support them. And I'm going to show you pictures because I think it's really important for all of us to be reminded, and I hope everyone can show pictures like this of the people in your life who have supported you along the way. I am only the cumulative investment of really amazing people who took their time to meet with me, to talk to me, to open doors for me. I'm not any smarter than anybody else. I don't work harder than anybody else. I've just had really great mentors and sponsors in my life. The person next to me is Marie Wilson, who founded the White House Project. She built the Ms. Foundation for Women. She started Take Our Daughters to Work Day, which is now Take Your Sons and Daughters to Work Day, if anyone's ever heard of that. The woman next to her is Gloria Steinem, who everybody knows. There's Janice Rills-Ellick and Davia Temin. This is Deval Patrick, former governor of Massachusetts. It's someone who has endorsed me and supported me throughout my career. Gina Davis and Susan Taylor, who to me still is Essence Magazine, even though she's not there anymore. All of these people at one point in my career have either thrown their body on the table to help me get the job or get the opportunity, have said, okay, when you move to that city, go find this person and tell them that I sent you. Or have taken the time to say, Tiffany, here's where you're not hitting it out of the ballpark. And here's where I really need to give you some tough advice about what you need to do in order to take it to the next level. And I think all of our young women need to understand that it's this ecosystem of support that's critical in order for us to be successful. Our leadership journey is a team sport. And one of the biggest challenges that I see when I get to these young women, which is right after they've graduated from college and they're just entering the workforce, is that they're still executing the same model that they do in their academic life, which is they really kind of put their head down, they focus on the work, they focus on achieving results, and when they don't get the promotion, they're devastated, and instead of looking around and thinking, maybe there's something else that I can do that I've never done before in order to get to the next level, they just dig their heels in deeper. They work harder, they stay later, they take on another project or assignment, and they're still not reaching out to get the support that they need. So the success equation that I'm putting forth is really about these three areas. It is about the assets, it's about ambition and being comfortable with your ambition, and it's about making sure that you have access to an ecosystem of people who can help you be successful. Now, many of us have girls in our lives, and they're all our daughters. And so I want to talk about some of the things that I've seen over and over again that are really helpful if you have a girl in your life to support her in executing on the success equation now and also in the future. So sometimes if someone asks me and I don't have a lot of time and they say, what can girls do now, or what can we have our girls do now in order to ensure their success? I basically tell them that, look, out of the women now currently that are at the highest levels of leadership in this country, the ones particularly that were born and raised in the US, they largely have three things in common, if you just want to narrow it down. The vast majority of women at the highest levels of leadership in this country at some point in their academic career went to a girls' school. The vast majority of women at the highest levels of leadership in our country right now played organized team sports, and the vast majority were Girl Scouts. I don't think that it has to be Girl Scouts, Girls Inc., but there is something about this trifecta that matters and that makes a difference. And if I had more time, we could go into why that is. But if you just want a shortcut, if you're girls in all three of these in some way, shape, or form, you're probably going to be just fine. But there's a couple of other things that I want to talk about. The second thing that I want to talk about is failure. And I have this image here because I really believe that one of the challenges that we have as women is that we don't get enough practice failing publicly. Failing publicly is important in order to instill grit. One of the greatest gifts that my dad gave me was really pushing me to run for student government. And he didn't necessarily do it because he wanted me to become civically engaged. It was more so he just had this kind of old school model of scholarship where he felt like you should be able to stand in front of a group of people and demonstrate your knowledge. And in his mind, if I was running for office, I would be giving lots of speeches, and he liked that vision of his daughter doing that. Well, one of the reasons why I say it was the greatest gift he gave to me is because from an early age, I began putting myself out there in a very deliberate way. I began running campaigns in which I had to go to my peers. I had to think about a rationale as to why they should vote for me. So I had to articulate to people publicly why they should invest in me and my leadership and why I was worthy of that. And then when they all voted and I didn't win, I had to get up and go to school the next day, a loser, based on the vote of my peers. And do you know what I learned more than once? The world doesn't fall apart. It doesn't fall apart. So any opportunities that we can give our daughters to fall flat on their faces in front of a lot of people and to have them be able to get up and know that the world moves on will support them tremendously, because so many of the young women that I coach and that I mentor are terrified of what will happen if everyone finds out that they're not perfect. My God. The last thing that I just want to say is something that you can just execute today, which is to invite a girl to lead. One of the organizations that I love is an organization called She Should Run. Between She Should Run, the White House Project, Vote, Run, Lead, I think we've probably trained the vast majority of women who are currently in our political pipeline. And part of She Should Run's model is what's at the far left hand of this slide, which is asking a woman to run for office. The White House Project did this as well. Vote, Run, Lead does this. The easiest way to get a woman to run for office, which by the way is the hardest thing to get anyone to do, is to simply find 3 people in that person's life that she trusts and to get them to just put a bug in her ear. You know, Susan, there's gonna be an open seat, and I think you would be great for that. Really, you think so? If she hears that 3 or more times, she's likely to begin to think, you know, I think I might make a good school board representative. It's very interesting how that happens. So it's very important if you have a girl in your life today, you have a young woman in your life today, just say, you know, I think there's this opportunity and I think you would be great for it. It's really important to be deliberate about inviting them to lead in order for them to take advantage of those opportunities. I want to make sure that I put this quote up here because it means so much to me, and that you take with you, which is that if you want something you've never had before, you're going to have to do something that you've never done before in order to achieve it. And we all collectively are going to need to do that in order to ensure that our daughters are successful. I learned something recently about goldfish, and I'm going to leave you with this, and then I want to talk because that's the best part for me. I was at a mentor's house in Boulder, Colorado. I was really struggling with something, and I was in her backyard. She has this beautiful pond, and she had me feeding the fish in her pond while she was getting some drinks. And I asked her, what kind of fish are these? And she said, those are goldfish. I said, goldfish? And I was very confused because they were huge. They were at least a foot long, each one. I said, what kind of goldfish are these? She says, like those little 25-cent goldfish that you buy at the state fair. And I said, no way. I said, but they're so big. She says, the reason why those little 25-cent goldfish that you buy at the state fair stay small is because when you get home, you put them in a fishbowl. She said, when I brought my home, I put them in this pond. She said, goldfish will grow to the size of their environment. Did anyone else know this about goldfish? Okay, some people did. I did not know this about goldfish. Okay. And I had such an epiphany because I spend so much time with organizations, with companies that are really trying to get more women into leadership, that are really trying to provide an environment in which women can thrive and grow. And I realized that it's just not possible if your environment is a fishbowl, right? That in order for women to have their ambition and be able to feel comfortable with it, you have to provide an environment in which their hopes can grow, their dreams can grow, the articulation of what they really want can grow. And I really just want to encourage all of us, whether you are running a home, whether you are running a school, whether you're running a company or a department, whatever it is that you're responsible for, that you're providing an environment for, quite frankly, everyone to be able to live up to their potential, and that you really are making it a pond and not a fishbowl. I think that's where we're gonna leave it. Is that okay, Jeannie?
That is great, except you don't get to leave yet. So.
I don't get to leave yet, she's saying.
Tiffany, before we ask our visitors and guests for questions, would you share some of the questions that the girls asked you today in your session with them? And these were student leaders that Tiffany met with.
Absolutely. So a lot of the questions that I got from the girls were questions related to the messages that we send them that already they're so bright are figuring out don't quite make sense entirely, right? So I got one question that was about, so how do I find my passion and purpose and then apply that to what it is that I want to do in life? Because they know, and because I'm very clearly a person who's rooted in my passion and purpose. And that's connected to this message that we send to young women, that if you just work hard and follow your passion, you're going to be successful. And I can tell you that probably in this room, I won't ask the question, but many of us don't know what our passion is. Many of us are still trying to figure out what our purpose is. It's actually a pretty ambitious goal and request of a 14 or a 15-year-old person or a 50-year-old person to say, please articulate what your passion and purpose is. So we talked a little bit about what I think passion and purpose is, which does not have to be some aha, divine moment where the skies open up and you drop to your knees and you discover that you're here to save orca whales, but that it can simply be a commitment that's inspired by a series of experiences, and that a commitment is a decision. You can decide what you want to be passionate about, and you can go back and story mine and curate a set of experiences to match that, and you can work on it. And I got a question from one young woman who talked about how we do that, and I said, there's another philosophy that passion is derived from excellence, that it's very difficult to be passionate about anything that you're not good at. So you could just experiment with getting good at something. And allow the passion to grow. So we talked about passion and we talked about purpose. There was a question about how do you get access to the people, like the ones, I didn't have time to do the full presentation, but they wanted to know, if I want a mentor, if I want a sponsor, how do I get access to them. So know that they're in need of support and they're in need of guidance, and they want that from you. So we literally did some role playing. We talked about how you can stalk people at events and wait in line to meet with them. I tried to let them know that the biggest thing is most people don't actually follow up. So if you're someone who just takes someone's card and follows up very thoughtfully, which they all will do, I said you'll get a long way. And we talked about what it's like to walk into a room full of people who you don't know, and how terrifying that can be, and some strategies for how you overcome that. They had some questions about not work-life balance per se, because they're not at the point where they're trying to figure out how they manage it all, but about pressure and about how we can relieve some of the pressure that we have to want to achieve a lot of success and feeling like we don't have a lot of time, which I always find really fascinating because I feel like they have all the time in the world. They wanted to know about my work with companies, and they were interested in what are the strategies, what are the interventions that companies are using in order for them to ensure that women are successful and that our leaky pipeline can get clogged. So I thought that was really interesting because it seemed outside of the scope of what they're dealing with right now, but they were very interested in that. And they wanted to know how they could curate a relationship with me, which was really great, right? Because they were already taking what they had learned and thinking, okay, so we're gonna start with Tiffany. And they wanted to know how they could reach me and what would be the best way to reach me and how I wanted to communicate with them, which was fantastic. It was fantastic. They were already taking the advice and they were already internalizing. Those are some of the things that we talked about.
And first, thank you so much, Tiffany.